I think we're live. So welcome to the 39th meeting of the Vermont Tax Structure Commission. I'm Deb Brighton and my fellow commissioners are Steve Trenholm and Bram Kleppner. And we're also joined by Staff Director Sean Sheehan and staff member Saoirse Anderson, who looks like two ovals because she's behind the scenes running the show. So I guess we start out with minutes from Friday's meeting.
I will make a motion to accept them as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, so they're accepted. So we have this usual public comment time where no one can actually comment except through using email, but your email would be welcome at taxcommission@leg.state.vt.us. Okay, so I think first up is everything crossed off on the list except for one line, maybe, Sean?
Right, yeah, and I could have posted, I thought about posting it again as a PDF with everything crossed out except the one line, and then I said, if you can fit the one line into one bullet, I might as well just put it right into the agenda. So on the agenda, what I have down, my understanding is the rest of the road is making final decisions in this meeting right now, doing copy editing this week, and delivering the report next Monday.
As scheduled.
Yep.
As scheduled.
We made it. Great. So we're moving right on to the commissioner discussion. And I guess we're starting with the compiled responses to public comments. Is that what you want to do first?
Yeah, I think it's up to everyone. That was the way I put it on the agenda, just because that had been the way we had flowed out of the last meeting. But if you want to take it from the top of the report, either, completely up to you.
I think
Well,
that makes a lot of sense.
We can zip through this one, the responses.
That sounds good. Great. So Saoirse, yeah, I think we can probably just open the combined draft. I posted Steve's just because we had posted Deb and Bram's last week, but this is the combined one that that I sent out to everyone yesterday. As I mentioned, these points won't be in this format in the final report. We'll have the actual letters that were written, and then Saoirse, if you scroll down, I think in green is the responses. And so, in addition to copy editing this week, I'll figure out. I know a couple people in the office have the fancy version of Adobe that'll let me clip the splice together the PDF letters that people sent in with the report. So I'll put in that letter, and then we'll have these responses. I think you've all read them. I don't know how you want to.
So I didn't have any comments on any of them. I mean, I thought it was great. Did anybody want to make any changes?
No, I'm perfectly happy with all of the answers and comments.
There's one that I'd like to look at just to make sure that we're all comfortable with it. And I don't, and kind of all the back and forth, I don't recall exactly where it is, but I think John McClary made a comment about,
right.
Actually, I don't know. Someone said, hey, we already have a carbon tax because we have fuel taxes and we tax this and that. And there's tax credits for renewable energy, and just leave it at that. And I wrote a response to that, that again, I want to make sure that you guys agree with what I wrote before we publish it, because I gave a pretty broad global warming type answer. And I have no idea where that is. So in terms of pulling it up to look at it, I can't give any good direction.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah.
I remember this because I avoided it. I think that's why you jumped in.
Yeah, it's number 11. Sorsh, actually,
Oh,
if you,
good.
if you go down to number 11, so it's page, my page
Yeah.
coming up, 19, I think.
You didn't take the bait and you left it there for me to fall right in.
Yeah, so it'll be the green at the bottom of this point. Yeah.
Sorry, my mouse is overactive. I'll find it.
Yeah, this is it. So yeah, right there.
Yeah, so that paragraph, we were asked to consider how climate change might impact Vermont's tax system over the next 20 years. That investigation makes it clear that climate change is bad for Vermont's economy in many ways and worse for the national and global economies. We believe, and this is kind of my strong belief, but I said we, so it's gotta be your belief. It's gotta be the belief of everyone as well. We believe the most financially responsible response to that threat is for every country and every state within the US and for every town within Vermont and every business, nonprofit, church, building owner, and family to move as quickly as possible to clean transportation, clean heating, and clean energy production. Our recommendations are consistent with that view.
I think that's fine. I mean, it's a broad brush. It's not saying anybody's bad, anybody's good. As soon as possible connotes just that, as soon as possible. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's good.
I think it's great. So thank you for doing that.
You are welcome. Thank you, guys.
So you're patient. You know, I think that's really good. And the only other thing I saw was that there was a place that I put in chart X. And that should refer to that chart that shows the bars of the property tax and the line for the resulting tax. Let's see what this is.
Yeah, that's up on. I highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
Up on, yeah, with the chart on page X. I put page X in yellow. The reason I put it in yellow instead of putting a page number was as we go through.
Is that up or down? Sean, is page X up or down?
Oh, page X is up on page 4 of this document.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, but so that means you'll catch it.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I
All
put
right.
it in highlighted yellow to be sure we'll catch it in the proofreading there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, right on there. Yeah. And scrolling down, the one after that, the one I wanted to flag, I didn't highlight or anything, but on number 3, the following question, this one here, we're looking at which is number 2. So then there's feedback person number 3. And when you scroll down toward the end of their feedback, right at the bottom of this page, kind of right where you are actually straddling those 2 pages, is where you say, we agree that part of the increase in remote work will be permanent. We hope Vermont's attractiveness as a place for remote workers to live and raise their families will be enhanced by one of the lowest sales tax rates in the country and a significantly lower property tax burden as well. We hope that our recommendation to move a portion of education funding to an income-based tax will not be a deterrent, as young families moving here and purchasing their first home will be earlier in their earning curve and therefore find an income-based tax less burdensome than a property value-based tax. That obviously, as you mentioned, kind of throughout, will be dependent, I guess will be shown in the incident studies or in the modeling for this report. But just based on the work we did last year and the data we looked at for the demographic paper, it looked like this wouldn't be the case, that the earlier in their earning curve part, as you recall, the people on the younger families tended to have a lower ratio of property value to to relatively higher incomes. So I mean, I don't know. I guess, you know, you certainly could leave it there because it, you know, could be the hope, or it's left. But I just wanted to flag that in case that was something you wanted to, you know, not get hung on to remove that piece. But that was just one I wanted to point out. I think there was another place too where maybe the same thing was mentioned, and also the issue of people who have higher incomes potentially paying, you know, having more money to spend on the sales tax. And as we know, with the sales tax being regressive, hence the reason for tying it to the transfer system, and helping out the 4 deciles there, that people in the top deciles may pay the most in raw terms, but not in percentage terms of income, how we usually look at pieces. So I'm not seeing that one in front of me too, but in reading them through, those were the 2 that kind of caught my eye, that I at least wanted to bounce by you to make sure everybody was comfortable with the way they were written.
Well, relative to the remote work, would we want to add to that where it's where we say young families moving here and purchasing their first home will be earlier in their earning career, and given the inventory of available property, maybe because I'm on both sides of the fence. I hear what you're saying, Sean, but I don't think that's going to be the case in the future, because I think I think the property values of what people are buying are going to go up, and they're going to go up drastically, and have gone up since we started this. So I don't know how Deb and Bram feel about that.
I agree. I like the paragraph the way it is, because I think it's just saying people are going to have a hard time affording their housing. We know that's true, and this will just make it a little bit easier. And I agree that the housing values are going up faster than income now.
You know, I like it the way it is also, and wonder if and again, I'm like Steve, I hear both sides of this equation. Yeah. You know, if we could incorporate it all by just the last line, young families moving here and purchasing their first homes will be earlier in their earning curve. And you know, instead of therefore find an income tax less burdensome, if we change that to and will be able to count on or be able to plan, I don't have the right word, on their education tax moving in parallel with their income.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. Yep. And maybe add to that, would find income-based tax more favorable because they would be able to tie their education tax to the movement of their income.
I have, yeah, let me catch, I got the part that where Bram said, and you can repeat yours, Steve. But so I said, purchasing their first home will be earlier in their earning curve, comma, and will be able to count on their education tax moving in parallel with their income. And so.
And he's just adding, and which may be more favorable.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all I'm adding.
And will be more favorable.
Which may be more favorable. As, in fact, I think we can even be explicit about the point that you both made, and may be more favorable as property values are increasing rapidly in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, Again, I think the increase in property values, as we had in the graph there, I think we did before, we were looking at volatility and growth in the property and income tax basis. That comes into play in relative senses.
Or, actually what I should have said is, which they may find more favorable as we expect property values to increase rapidly over the next 10 years.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, the issue with that, I think, where Bram said the first part, we'll be able to count on their education tax moving in parallel with their income. That is a benefit of sort of, stability or aligned with expectation, not necessarily tied to, the benefit of whether they're paying more or whether they're paying less. When you add the which they may find more favorable, as we expect property values to increase rapidly in the next 10 years, that implies, at least on my read, that they'll be paying less than they might with property values. And I think that's the part that seems to be on thinner ice, given that if all of the property values are increasing rapidly and they're in a relatively less expensive home compared to people who are older and on the downslope of their earning career, but in larger houses, the people currently benefiting from the property tax credits, then the taxes they pay would be, like the rate may drop if the property values increase more. As we talked about, one of the reasons the property tax rates have increased so much in the last 10 years is property has been stagnant as education costs have gone up. So if you get the flip and property values increase rapidly, property tax rates may drop, but it's where you are relative to the overall market. And so that's the part that, unless you're implying just that which they may find more favorable, again, not favorable in a financial benefit sense, but from a being able to count on the
Right.
expectation that'll be tied to income.
That was my intent for saying that, because,
Okay.
I can speak from experience moving up here. I had no idea, other than the purchase price, how my property was going to be valued. And I shudder to think what's going to happen when the town of Essex and Essex Junction revalues, because property values have gone up drastically. So, but I don't know what they're going to base that on. I know that if I'm paying 2.5% of my AGI, for instance, I know what I can count on.
That makes sense. Yeah. So if that's the way you saw it and that's the way you read it, I think that that paragraph works. Is
I
everyone
just
good?
just for the record, I am not putting myself in that younger cohort as a dream. just using it as an example. Okay, just saying.
Right.
Okay, any other things that people want to talk about on this?
So there was, Sean, you said that besides this, there was one other thing that you thought we should look at?
Yeah, and I apologize that I'm not seeing it now. It was I'm looking on here.
It's about the sales tax and income or something.
Yeah, it was related to the sales. It was related to the sales tax. There was a comment about the increase. Was as a lot of the comments here. I think that's why I'm having a harder time finding it, as you've noted. There are a lot.
I think what you were talking about was the part that said that what makes it a little less regressive is that people with more income tend to spend more and therefore pay more sales tax. I think that was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's exactly it, Steve. Right. And that was the part that in the traditional sense of the way taxes and regressivity are talked about, it didn't jive with that because sales taxes are typically seen as regressive, because even though people with higher incomes spend more, they're spending a lower percentage of their income on consumption than others. But I don't want to take our time now. We can, we can go on, and I can either flag that to you separately, and if
Okay.
everyone's good to it.
I had two questions on this, sort of general questions. One was about the person that I emailed, who did send in a comment, and I emailed the response to him. And I just don't know whether, and I haven't heard back from him, and I don't know whether for completeness sake, we should acknowledge, we should do the same thing for his comment and include a response, even though it's not in here yet.
For full transparency, I would agree, Deb, that it should be in there.
I do too, and I think maybe maybe to avoid embarrassing this person, to protect this person's privacy, we could say, just add a little addendum. We received one piece of feedback which we believe is based on a misunderstanding. What the concern that was raised was, and then quote their concern, and then I think your response was great. I think it cleared it right up.
And then not put his name in, you're saying?
I think not. Just again, I don't know how this person would feel about having it pointed out publicly that they misread what we were recommending.
Okay, that's fine with me. But this sort of related to this is when we get to the appendix where we're acknowledging, all the papers that people sent in and all that sort of stuff, I'm wondering if we couldn't just have a similar link, say the following people send in comments, and then have a similar link to this document that we're creating, rather than have it in the appendixes of the report as a whole. And I guess my reason for doing that is that some of the original testimony that came in is probably more important even than the comments that came, the second batch of comments. And it just seems sort of strange to me that people send us comments and they end up being in our report, particularly with our answers telling them they're wrong. I mean, not that they're wrong, but so I don't know. I just feel more comfortable if we, in that appendix where we're listing all the people who sent in information testified earlier, we go on to say, and the following people testified on the draft, and then have a link to their letters and our responses.
Yeah, seems fine. I don't have any strong reason to want it to be included in a different way than the earlier public testimony was.
And it cuts down on the thickness of the paper report, which will make it less daunting for those that have to read.
Right. Yeah, so actually, I mean, it's probably a good segue to pop over to the report there, Sorsha. And I, for the transparency's sake, I posted both versions as I noted, but figured we could open the one that doesn't have all the track changes that we already talked through on Friday and Monday for easier sake. So Sorsha, that'll be the one that's the report 131, the one that's not called the previous version. But if you scroll down to page 139 of that, actually, it'll depend on if I'm looking at the same, yeah, with all markup, I believe it's be 139. That was the appendix where I carved out the space. And we have it blocked off, that kind of the yellow mark there, the note insert feedback and right. Yeah, exactly right there. The insert feedback and commissioner responses here. So you're thinking rather than having 20 or 30 pages of feedback and responses here, we could just say these Vermonters' feedback and our commission's response to them can be found here, URL to the
Yeah.
page.
Mhm.
Okay, great. We'll do that. And then on the list of people, so I won't add Tim Denny's name to the list here, but we'll add that comment the way you flagged it. And so you had it. So you had put it in first person singular, Deb. And when I add that in, I don't know if you saw the email I wrote back, just kind of paraphrasing what you had, changing it into
Sorry, I
we.
missed it. No.
Oh, okay. You can look after. I can read here. It hits short. I can read. The other thing I did, I thought, with his flipping was I flipped the two types of property you had. I'll just read it here. I just said, thank you for commenting on our draft report and for reading it. We think there's a misunderstanding that we'd like to clear up. There'd be two categories of education tax : for residents, there'd be an income-based education tax. This tax would be in lieu of an education property tax on their primary residence, parentheses, defined as the house and up to 2 acres. Number two, all other property, parentheses, including the entire value of second homes, would still be subject to an education property tax. There'd be no change in the municipal grant list, so all residents would continue to pay municipal taxes on their listed value. So I took what you had. I just brought up that piece you said about second homes that was below into the
Sure.
two. I put them numbered 1, 2, and then I flipped it around. I thought putting the residents first rather than the non-residents first and residents second might help with the understanding.
Great.
But if that works, I'll put that in. So I'll slot that in, and won't make any changes to names or anything on this page. We'll just add the URL, put that document up with this one added, and we'll call that done.
Great. Is that okay with everybody?
It's okay with me.
Great.
So should we go back to the beginning of this document?
Sure. Yep.
And
Yeah.
start
So
with
if you want to, yep. Yeah. So on the top here, as I think I flagged in the email today, I just added the final report of the Vermont Tax Structure Commission. As far as what you actually want to call it next week when we submit it, I could just take off draft. It could just be final report of the Vermont Tax Structure Commission. If you have any creative ideas for other other titles, I don't think we can call it whatever we want. I added the part here about being prepared in accordance with Act 11, and still have your names and next week's submission date. But
the only thing I wonder, I don't see this as a great venue for creativity, but I do wonder if we want to add. Now you've scrolled down and I see there's the date. That's the only thing I was going to suggest, is we add the date so that people know it's not the Tax Structure Commission of 1891, but so that's great.
Right. We also have 2021 up in the top right corner too. So we'll see the top of that page and the actual submission date on the bottom of the page. Yeah. So scrolling down to the next page, or I guess past this next page, down to past the table of contents.
Page 7, I think.
7. Okay.
Although actually, can we scroll, I'm sorry, can we scroll back up and look at the table of contents? Just want to see how the new chapter 8 and everything fell out.
Yeah, it was bumped over. I think it was in 2, but I changed it to be the style 1, so it lined up there. It does roll to
Oh,
second line. But
perfect. Thank you. All right.
Great. So down on 7, changes to chapter 1 I had were were very slight, just the numbers of the appendices and then the numbers of the chapters of all the chapters from chapter 8 on. Those references all got bumped up 1 with the new chapter. A few of the consistency pieces here, that we had a mix of when we said the legislature sometimes being lowercase, sometimes being capped. So I changed that always to be capped when it's referring to our specific legislature. Same thing with the administration from here on.
And commission and state.
The commission. Yep.
And state.
Commission.
And principles when you refer to the NCSL principles, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you got those. Yeah. So state's always the tricky one, right? When you're talking about state government, it's capitalized. When you're talking about just the state, it's not capitalized. And then I, in reading through and kind of going through each version of state, there were some that were clearly state, the territory we are, or the community of Vermont, and then others that were state government. But I realize there's other times where it's kind of you could be talking about either. But made my best judgment call on all of those. And on the principles, as you know, Deb, I went through those, and we had some where it was capitalized, some where it weren't. A bunch where we said NCSL's principles. And so what I did was where we had it flagged, and we have it in our our references, the citation for the NCSL's principles. So I put it in italics for the document there when we define it, and then from there on just said principles. When we were talking about principles, the document had it capitalized and italicized, and when we were talking about particular principles, like the sustainability principle or something like that wasn't referring to the document as a whole, I didn't have it capitalized. So
Alan, can I just say how grateful I am to you for all of this stylistic work, but also for the substantive issues that you identified at the top of the meeting and helped us hammer out for consistency of concepts and consistency of presentation. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, you're very welcome. I think as we get to this transition time, I hope with that feedback part 2, I know it was a lot of work that all you put in on that, responding to the feedback, but it feels like it'll be helpful for all of you as you're taking additional testimony and dealing with these questions that you've kind of wrangled with those that have come up, because it does seem like even with those 15, the same topics came up over and over again. So I'm sure they'll come up more. So it seems like you're all rehearsed and ready to go get them. So I think that's it for this chapter 1, and I think we can scroll down unless anybody has anything else on that down to chapter 2. At the top of chapter 2 is where we discussed that opening paragraph explaining why you put them in the order you did. And
Sorry,
I
do
just
you have
want.
a page number?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
If you have it, then I don't have to make our viewers see.
10.
Yeah, 10. Okay, Deb's more on top of it than me, except for 10. Page 10. Yeah. Right. Yep. Right there. Is yeah. So again, we talked about that on Friday, but we didn't talk through it. If just wanted to make sure or check with you to see if I captured what you had in mind, or if you wanted to word that differently.
Looks good to me.
Looks good to me as well.
Great.
Me too.
Excellent. Thank you. So that then brings us down. I'll try to find the page number. I think we can. Oh, actually, in this one too, Steve, did you have a chance to look at still in the same section, maybe down a page, down to recommendation 5 for the income tax features, which I think is page 14. That's where I added the sentence or two, I guess just a sentence maybe, on where we talked about the salt issue being the long term, not being the workaround.
Right.
I wanted to make sure I captured what you had in mind there.
You did, as a matter of fact. Thank you.
Great.
Looks good.
Excellent. So from there, I think we're good on all the principles and commissions and all that. We can skip ahead to chapter 5. I'll grab the
44,
page.
page 44.
44. Okay. Yep. Yeah. 44. Exactly. Thanks, Deb. Yeah. And so that's where we added the paragraph. I guess it's actually 3 paragraphs on childcare, and there weren't any subsections to this chapter before, but in adding the childcare section, I thought it made sense to add that subtitle for childcare, and then to add a new subtitle at the end of childcare, introducing the last section. Again, I think you could make the argument, as we talked about Friday, of childcare being in a different place overall or within this chapter. So put it out to ask you if I picked the right spot and if I said the right things. Happy to edit here on the fly if anyone has thoughts.
I think it looks good because particularly it's not just because it's a cliff, it's also because it's an economic importance. I'm glad you've got both of those pieces.
Great. Good.
Yeah, that all looks really good to me. I would make one punctuation note as I channel my English teacher. Opening phrase, it is important to note that. I don't think we need the comma after that. It is important to note that of the 6 family types analyzed, etc.
Right. So important to note that, right in there. Perfect. That's gone. So I think we can skip down to chapter 8, the new chapter 8, which is page 92. That's the.
Oh, wait, on page 84.
Yep.
There was you might have caught this, something about e-clothing. It's a different version than I had.
Right. Yep. I have that here. Yeah. So I assume it can just be regular clothing, right? You weren't talking about the stuff that my kids buy on their Roblox apps. Clothing's for their characters on the pets.
You can rest assured that was a typo.
All right. Good catch, Deb. Thank you. The E is
In
now
88, there's something about casual sale or sales. I did this on another version where it talks about defining casual sales.
Yeah, here, this one where we talk about summer long yard sales and.
Oh, I know. The paragraph that starts, we leave to the legislature to determine what constitutes a casual sales with an S.
Thank you. So yeah, let's get rid of the S after sale. What constitutes a casual sale? Good catch.
That's gone. Yep. Great catch. Okay.
And thank you for making the change on updating that little thing at the top of the table for the FY22.
Oh, yeah.
And that was helpful. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I had changed it, the one in the body during the meeting Friday, and then over the weekend I went and changed them all in the appendices, and I changed all the other parts outside of the table, and then it was only this morning I realized that in the trying to multitask during the meeting, I had overlooked that one in the body. So those all should be good. Should be good now. So great. Anything else before we get to chapter 8 then?
Is that before page 95?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Chapter 8 is the new consumption tax chapter, and right. I guess page 95 is the
Question.
First one has the question, and so that was So Bram, from where we discussed the changing the 3.4 to the 5.2 on Friday. As I went through and changed those, most of those were pretty, pretty intuitive, pretty straightforward, not a lot of judgment needed. But then there was this one paragraph that referenced 3.4 being lower and the JFO piece. And it seemed to me that paragraph could just come out given the changes you made to the rest of the body, but I wanted to confirm that worked for you.
And where is that paragraph? I'm sorry.
It is, if you scroll down a little bit more, Sorsha, on this page 95. Yeah, right there. So I think in the previous version that what I have in the comment you had in your body where it said, we note here and acknowledge relative to the paragraphs that follow, the JFO analyst found our estimate 3.4. And so at first I changed that to 5.2 and I said, wait, it doesn't, it's saying it's lower. And so it just seemed like when I reread it and read the whole thing in the context, it seemed like taking that paragraph out worked best.
I am happy with that deletion. You're right. It no longer makes sense. So
great. Good. I think, unless anyone else saw anything, I believe that's the
102, there was something.
Oh, right. Yep. 102 was, that was the same change that we had looked at above in chapter 2 with the salt cap. But yeah, it's good to look at it here to make sure it was the same. It also fit. That was just on Friday. Steve had asked to write something up about the salt cap. So this text works here too?
It does.
Great. So then I was wondering about changing something in the timeline on page 110.
Great. Yep. Oh yeah, I should note the minor edits I made to that one. I think you had the property tax education financing underlined. I just underlined consumption taxes and income tax down in that same lowered a little further down in the same column, just to create that parallel there.
So what I was thinking is in number 1 in red under property tax where it says move to income rather than house site value for all homeowners in this first year. And I think we need to do analyze the move to it in the first year. And then everybody would migrate in the second year. But as Cynthia Browning pointed out, we just don't have the detailed analysis to be able to do it right now.
Okay. Yep. No, that makes sense. I'm just trying for the actual edit. Are you thinking flipping number 1 and number 2? So the first piece is to compile, analyze, or no?
Yeah, maybe that would be a good idea, Sean. So we start out with compiling and analyzing rent and income data, and then analyze the move to income.
Okay. Oh,
That's the
so
second
right.
one.
So, okay. Yeah, I got it. So what's now the second one? It's just a matter of adding the word analyze in front of.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Is that all right with people?
Yes.
Okay,
Graham?
great.
yes.
Okay, great. So right now we have number 1, compile / analyze rent income data. Number 2, analyze move to income rather than house site value for all homeowners. Perfect.
And then my next comment was page 138. I don't know if you have any before then.
I don't think I do. Does anyone else?
No.
I do not.
And 138, let's see. Oh, I think it was just a repeat. So let's see. In the middle, we start with what was in the beginning. So in other words, somewhere in the middle, it starts out, the commission could not conduct And it thanks. I agree that you, Sean, and Saoirse need double thanks, but we probably do need to write the sentences twice. You see where I am?
Oh, yeah. Yep, I see that, right? Yeah, I got that. Oh, yeah, what happened there? That's wacky. Right. Okay. Yeah, great catch there too. So, okay, perfect. Yeah. So those last 7 lines are gone, and I think that's.
No, I think the last
Right,
3 stay in, right?
Oh.
They're not repeated. It's just that bit in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is strange. Not sure what happened there. But okay. Yep. Great.
So is that it for the document?
I have nothing else.
Nor do I.
Wow. Great. Good work, Sean.
Yeah. Go team.
So now we're on to the transmittal letter.
We can
Is
move
that
on to
the
the
next thing?
Yeah, we can go to the transmittal letter. And so as I noted, so Saoirse, I have the one document there. As I started to pull it up and look to transmittal letters, they typically start by addressing the salutation to the people we're sending it to, and then say what it is that in accordance with Act 11, which we also have on our cover, and then just our principal charge is paraphrased a little bit from the act. Obviously, if they want to word that differently, there's a lot in there. You could say different things, but then beyond that, sometimes they're very short. I mean, it could be as short as just that one paragraph, and then respectfully submitted to all of you. But when I was looking at it, I thought what you have in Chapter 13, the conclusion really reads well like a transmittal letter. And I know mentioned on Friday, getting a positive response from legislators and others on that, being a nice chapter, and thought in that sense there could be a couple options. Either one, I lifted a couple paragraphs from that here. This would be one option, but the other option would just be right after that initial official paragraph, putting in the whole conclusion letter that you have, which you even end it with respectfully submitted in your names. And by doing that, it would get it a little more coverage, I guess, by people who if they don't read down to Chapter 13. But it's I guess the flip side, as I said, does it look weird then if you have 2 verbatim texts, but it's not in the report? This is a transmittal letter. So I mean, it's the short answer is the short point. It's up to the 3 of you to decide what you want to do. But that was something that entered my mind.
Any thoughts?
So I think what you have here is great. I think the issue of repetition is not a big one because there probably aren't very many people who are going to read both the transmittal letter and the concluding paragraph of the report. And those who do, those 2 events will probably be separated by a decent amount of time.
After reading 120 pages, they won't remember verbatim what they wrote in the letter.
Yeah. So I think this is great. A little bit of the concluding language from the report and introductory language for the letter.
So Steve?
I agree with Bram.
So we'll keep this one and keep the conclusion. I don't know if I told everybody I got some good comments on the conclusion. So maybe people do jump to the conclusion. But
So to speak.
Right.
I would just say, Sean, in the last paragraph, you're using daunting which you just used the sentence before, I think.
Yep.
Maybe just switch that word.
Great.
But
And perfect.
so that looks great. So we're on to additional issues.
Yeah, if anyone has any.
I have no
Any-
additional issues.
Graham?
I
It better not be a big one.
no, I think like Mary Poppins, this report is on track to be practically perfect in every way. So,
Oh, of course. Well, so, I was thinking about pulling this together, how many changes we've made and, fitting the pieces together and how long it's taken. And I think sometimes when people comment on reports, they just think their comments are going nowhere, not changing anything. And we have made so many changes based on all the people who have weighed in and helped us. And now at meeting 39, we've had so much support from those two ovals over there, Saoirse Anderson, who disappears during the meeting. We almost forget she's here. And I have no doubt that she's multitasking because she's the best multitasker I have ever known, but she never misses a beat. I mean, she's been here every single time to keep us running smoothly. And then there's Sean, who's kept us going through the whole thing. And I think about how pleasantly he has put up with this sort of unpredictable and changing process. And if you think back on all of the thought and planning that he put into the substance and arranging meetings around the state, remember those days?
Mhm.
Like a lot of work. And then all of a sudden there's this pandemic pivot. And he just gracefully just changed directions and picked up all the pieces, kept us organized, moving forward, brought up inconsistencies. But most, I just think you always willingly and diligently researched and got answers to anything that we asked. And I was just going through my emails I have to do this before every meeting, search on Sean and figure out what's the latest of all these things. But so many of his emails begin with sure thing. Like we ask him to do something impossible and he just goes, sure thing. He doesn't go, not enough time, can't do it, no data. It's always sure thing. So, and also I wanted to recognize that I think that you took this job to spend more time with your family, yet you've been working weekends and never mentioned it, just did it, We're really thankful.
Well,
And then
I appreciate
I'm on
that, and I know I know all three of you probably took your positions, not not knowing how much you were biting off either. So
yeah, but it was a given for us that we were working on weekends because we all had other jobs,
Right.
But then Steve, who at first I thought Steve understood all of these details, these complicated details in the income tax, and that was really his thing. And he patiently guided us through all of our questions about these things, our misunderstanding about the complicated things. But yet we came to realize that the details weren't really your priority. It was the principles. And you consistently came out with the principle as being the most important, whether it was a salt cap and the estate tax that are in your field, but also in the other discussions, you kept bringing us back to the principles for education, the principles for consumption tax, to just sort of clarify that was where we were going. It was really important. And then there's Graham, who jumped into the consumption tax with so much energy that he created a lot of waves, but he created a calculator, comprehensive analysis, and recommendations for reform when it wasn't even your field necessarily. But even more important, I think, to the overall effort, you gave an attention to the whole from the very beginning. And like way back when we could still meet in person, you said we need an outline, and you started us with an outline. And then you created the vertical and horizontal structure that was really our scaffolding, but it's now your brand. And also you tackled missing pieces, like the timeline and the conclusion, and pieces in the middle that, you know, needed to be smoothed over, needed to be connected or whatever. And maybe we should thank your mom for this, but you did the grammar check. That was helpful. And I think we also want to thank Susan Messner, who did some very professional background papers in the beginning and really helped us move off the starting line. And I was thinking after our meeting with Senate Finance that Steve mentioned something about being a team, and it really feels like that. At this point, it really feels like a great team. Thank you all.
Well, and Deb, then there's you,
Yeah.
who brought such a vast knowledge to the education funding and property tax system as a whole. I dare say that, and I don't want to speak for Bram, I'll let him chime in too, but I certainly couldn't have gotten through that major piece of it without your knowledge and your background in it, which was, and just, you know, and your patience with us as well, was a big learning process for me anyway, even though I'm a quote tax expert. An expert in taxes doesn't mean that you're an expert in all taxes. So, you know, and I stand by what I said, you know, we may not have all agreed 100% with each other on things, but we operated as a team. We finished as a team, and we came up with conclusions that we all can support. And as I said, finished as a team. So kudos to you as well, Deb.
Yeah, and I would add to that as well, that you managed to be incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly pleasant at the same time. And it's just been an absolute pleasure working with all of you. You know, Sean and I had worked together before, and that's why I was enthusiastic about working together again, because I knew what a pleasure and, you know, just how competent and hardworking and skilled Sean was, and what a gift to get to know all the rest of you. So it's really been wonderful.
Echo that same sentiment.
So thanks you all. And I believe that the consensus part has been really a strength, really important. So, and, you know, I guess Steve said that when this is delivered, February 8th, that we're done. And, you know, I hope, but there will be, you know, requests to talk to different committees in the legislature and stuff like that. And I assume that we'll all stick to consensus, but that the difference will really be that we could like even email each other and not have it violate public meeting law. that would be the main difference. If we bump into each other in the street, we can even talk. You know?
Right.
Yeah. You could talk right there. You won't have to.
Instead of like
quorum,
each other, crossing the road to the other side.
Right. Stay right there. I'm going to ask Sean to warn our conversation, and we can talk to you.
Yeah, that's about it.
Sean will ask Sorsha what I have to do. That's a great point.
So if there's nothing else for us to do at this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you all. Adjourned by consensus.
Thank